So I'm Jim Watson, I'm chair of the UKRI steering committee for the GGR-D programme. Yeah, I just want to say thanks, to the organisers and everybody who's spoken today. It's been great. And what's really struck me by having so many people in the room, and it's not everybody, is just how big this programme is, both in terms of the people working in it, but those people supporting it and working with the projects and the hub and so on. This is a big community already. I'm not going to attempt to sum up everything we've heard. You'll be relieved to hear, because I don't have time to do that, or the brain to do that at this time on a Friday. I'm going to end with 4 words and expand on them just a little for each one. And these are words which I think are particularly important for those involved in the programme for the remaining 3.5 years of its life. The 4 words are independence, agility, integration, and assurance. So first, independence. I think, what we've heard today is that it's so important that we have this programme to have that independence to provide evidence and expertise on what is a very rapidly changing environment, a rapidly growing market, as we've just heard, and that actually that independence should be treated very, very carefully. I think it'd be easy to slip into advocacy. And I'm sure we've had this discussion at the steering committee already. I'm sure most people involved don't want to do that. But to make sure that we've really got the evidence to inform decisions which are going to be made and which are already being made, some of which will have far-reaching consequences. So I think the independence that the programme already has is going to be very important as time goes on. Second, agility, and that's related to this. I think one thing that struck me perhaps more today than it has before is how quickly this is moving. Not just in terms of how much time we have left to tackle climate change. We don't have very much. It's already happening. How near some of the targets are for deploying GGRs in the UK, but also, as we've just heard in that panel, how quickly the market is developing. And all the comments we've had about supply outstripping demand and people wanting to offset their emissions and buying up land and so on and so forth. I think that creates a very challenging environment for a research program like this and for demonstrators like this. So being able to be agile and provide insights quickly, which is not always easy for academics to do in particular, is going to be very, very important. And if we don't do that and we don't do it properly, including the public engagement and all of the things we've heard about today, then it will backfire. I think there's a big risk it will backfire if that evidence isn't built into the decision making. So I think that's a big challenge for everybody concerned. Integration's another one. I've really been struck as well by the fact that this whole area, for those of you who've worked in it for a long time and longer than me, won't be surprised by this, but it cuts across sectors which have previously not been in the same conversation. So having a conversation about agriculture, a conversation about the natural environment and environmental protection, and a conversation about industrial decarbonisation all coming together, as we have in some of the panels, I think means that you've got some quite important silos to cut across and to bring together and to integrate. And to integrate also the BASE programme as well as the GGR-D programme itself. I think we've heard quite a lot about policy and regulatory frameworks today. I can't quite see the overarching framework which is going to cover all of those things and all of the options we've heard about. Some granular solutions will be needed, but certainly there is some joining up to do, both within the research community and perhaps harder still, it was a question earlier today, within government to make sure this is a genuinely joined up strategy. I think we got from BASE the diplomatic answer to that we're all working together, but I think we all know in practice that's a very difficult thing to do for government itself. And then finally, assurance. This has come up again and again, and it was there in the panel just now. The monitoring, verification, reporting, and I think the programme has a massive role to play, both in developing the frameworks, but also developing the early data to test those frameworks in practice, and really in real time refine those frameworks as time goes on, through trial and error, getting it wrong, learning, and then getting it right eventually. So real-time testing is going to be really important, not just for the technologies, but for the assessment frameworks themselves. I'm going to quote from another steering committee member from one of our meetings, and they were really making a plea. They're somebody that's worked a lot with governments and so on, and with practitioners, is to make sure when the programme develops tools, and I'm sure this is their ambition, that are not going to be sat in the proverbial garage in 10 years' time gathering dust, that they are actually going to be tested and used by practitioners and by real projects and by policymakers. Now, I know the programme is doing that, but just really to reinforce that message of how important that is. And I think the other point, which I think I'm going to end on, is that some of those frameworks are going to be needed to see how multiple greenhouse gas removal options can work together, some of the trade-offs you might have, especially when you're deploying them in similar locations or similar areas of the country, and just to be able to understand those interactions. Some of the demonstrators already have that built into their program, but I think that's something else that the committee has already pointed to as an important area for the program as a whole, let alone the internationalization point, which has come up in a number of the discussions as well, which is going to be important once companies, such as the ones that have just been speaking, start internationalizing their work and being able to compare projects and emissions reductions across international borders. So those are just 4 things that occurred to me, which I hope are useful for the program in future. But again, congratulations on all the work that's been done so far, and I really look forward to seeing how the program develops in the remaining time and the impacts it really needs to have on real-world decision-making. Thank you very much.